I like that walk-up music. How cool is that? I get that everywhere I go. It's really great to be in a friendly crowd. Academics often give papers to crowds that are not quite so friendly. So it's good to be here with you. Thanks to Jed and Rachel for inviting us to be with you. It's a real pleasure to talk about the Global Flourishing Study. It's a pleasure because it's a one-of-a-kind study that we are leading between Harvard, the Human Flourishing Program, and the Baylor Institute for Studies of Religion. It's about 50 scholars who are studying 200,000+ people around the world on 6 populated continents in 40 different languages. Nothing like this has ever been attempted before. So it's a landmark study, and we're really pleased to tell you that it's really a study of John 10:10. I was just talking to Mary Beth Chapman about this. Jesus said, I come to give them life and more abundantly, and what we're studying is, what does the abundant life look like? And so what we're doing is looking at 6 different domains of human flourishing: physical health, mental health, close relationships, character, virtue, and financial security. These are the 6 domains of flourishing. So if you're doing well in all these areas of life, you're probably flourishing. But a lot of people in the world are not. And most of the research in the world is done here in the United States. And most of the research is what we call correlational. Because we're following the same group of people, this makes it an extraordinary study and extraordinarily difficult. I know some of you have big families. I heard some people in here have more than 10 kids. Well, you're trying to keep track of 10 kids. We're trying to keep track of over 200,000 people. In India, we have 11 languages that we're working with alone. So it's a landmark study. It's very exciting. And we're producing papers that are getting attention around the world. Nature, some of you have never heard of Nature. You think, well, Nature's outside, but Nature is the #1 scientific journal in the world, and that's where we're publishing papers. In the Nature journals, there's a portfolio of them, and this is bringing us recognition from around the world, and mainly from the secular audiences. And it's getting attention in a lot of public venues like The Atlantic and the National Geographic. The New York Times has done 4 articles on the study already, which is just really kind of shocking to see that we're getting that kind of recognition because the study is just so airtight and involves about 50 scholars from the 2 different institutions. You can advance the slide. So what are we learning so early in the project? It's a 5-year, 5-wave study, which means we interview people every year for 5 straight years. And so we released the first set of studies back on April the 30th, about 36 studies in one day. That too has never happened with the Nature journals. It's, again, unprecedented. But we're finding out some pretty amazing things that won't come as a surprise to many of you here. I think once you begin to hear the findings from the Global Flourishing Study, you will be amazed and encouraged because there's so much in here that's consistent with a Christian worldview. So guess what? Having parents that have a good relationship with their child is a huge predictor of how well they're going to do as an adult, because we asked people, think back to your age 12 years. And what was life like for you at the age of 12? So we asked them a series of questions, and then we're able to kind of do what we call a synthetic longitudinal, where we look back in time. So their health as a kid actually predicts health outcomes and flourishing outcomes as an adult. But the most powerful predictor so far, the one universal finding pretty much in the data set, is that religious service attendance predicts all of the domains of flourishing and predicts overall flourishing. So if I could give someone advice, I would say go to church. Take your kids to church. The kinds of things that you already know to do, you should do. And parenting matters. And what about people that are not flourishing? One of the problems is that so many kids around the world come from broken homes. And this is a real problem, and it is predictive of kind of languishing as adults. And so that makes the work that you're doing all the more significant and all the more important, and you need to keep doing it. Thank you for what you're doing. It's a blessing. If you could advance the slide. Flourishing in age. This is one of the more shocking findings that we've come to in the Global Flourishing Study. Not to go statistical on you, but typically when you look at who's doing well, it's the young and the elderly. And the people in the middle are not doing so well. If you think about it for a second, it makes sense. You have kids, you have a mortgage, you have aging parents, you have a lot of stress in your life. So people in the middle years typically don't do so well. It's a U-shaped curve. But now what we're seeing is a J. It looks like this. Young people around the world, not just in the West, are not doing well, and they're experiencing high levels of anxiety and depression and social isolation. So these are causes of concern. So age is changing as a pattern, and is something that already policymakers are coming to us to say, what do we need to do about that issue? So key takeaways on well-being, if you could advance the slide. One more. Thank you. A lot of people, especially economists, think that GDP predicts well-being. If you're doing well financially, if a society is doing well economically, then they will be a flourishing society. This is exactly what we do not find. So all the advanced countries in the world tend to fall in the middle of the pack. If you were to rank the countries, Indonesia comes out number 1 and Israel comes out number 2. I think someone said the Philippines a minute ago. Philippines number 3 in terms of flourishing. So some of those findings come as a surprise that middle-income countries are doing much better on things like meaning and purpose and close social relationships. But it's the advanced societies that are doing not so well in each of those categories. So the good news about the Global Flourishing Study is it's telling us where our blind spots are and what we can do about them. And that's the same thing for all of us. We're all on a journey of flourishing. And I would argue that God created us to flourish. And in Genesis 1 and 2, that's exactly what we had until Genesis 3. So we live in a Genesis 3 world where sin came into the world. But that doesn't mean we're not supposed to still try to flourish. And that's exactly what the study is trying to achieve. How can we take this knowledge that we're gaining and use it? So what I would like to do for a few minutes is take a look at the United States. In the 22 countries that we're studying, the U.S. is the one with the biggest sample. So we're following over 200,000 people, but over 38,000 just in the United States, which is really, too, unprecedented. So if you were to take a poll of Americans to see what they think about any topic today, you could interview 1,500 people and you could get a representative sample. So we have over 38,000, which is allowing us to do some analyses just in the U.S. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview of some of the U.S. data. So if you'll advance the slide, that would help me so I can see what I'm talking about here. So I'm not sure. Yes. Okay, good. This just shows you the different domains of human flourishing. The green are the Christians. The red represents people with no religious affiliation at all. And so this is on a scale of 0 to 10. You can't make up what you're seeing here. Religious people doing better on every single item that makes up the flourishing index. You could advance the slide again. And so this is really important because when you look at the difference between Christians and non-Christians, it's just stark from beginning to end. Non-Christians are twice as likely to experience anxiety and depression. If you could advance the slide. And this is particularly interesting when you're looking at 18 to 29-year-olds. You hear so much about the young people in our society, but if you look at the 18 to 29-year-olds, there's the ones that are following God are actually doing really, really well when you compare them to their non-religious counterparts. And then if you see this slide here, this doesn't mean that Christians are exempt. Young Christians and others experience anxiety and depression, but not nearly at the level of those people that are not religious. We haven't started doing studies on atheism just yet, but I can tell you what we're already seeing, and that is atheists don't do well in all the domains of flourishing. And again, that doesn't come as a surprise to you, but it certainly comes to a surprise of those people in the secular world. Yeah, you can keep advancing the slide so I can get to a few more points here. This is just church attendance. This is really kind of remarkable, the pattern that you see here. Going to church matters. It makes a difference. So when you hear people talk about forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, this would be great advice that you should give to anyone. You can advance it. And this just shows you again the difference here when you look at church attendance as a protective factor. So it's a huge insulator. Doesn't mean that you're inoculated from all kinds of things, but it is a protective factor for anxiety and depression especially. Yes, you can keep going through this. And what I really want to get to here is to show you the difference between Christians. If you could advance it, one more. Yeah. Oh, we're at the end somehow. Well, let me... See, this is really good. Now I have some time to play around. We had two different PowerPoints, and that one was a little shorter than I was expecting. Academics tend to go long. So if they're giving a 15-minute talk, the first 10 minutes is an introduction, and then the last 5 minutes, they're trying to cram it all in there. So that website right there might be a useful tool for you. If you just go to that website, you can find the studies that we're publishing so far, about 70 studies from just wave 1. There'll be another 30 or so studies added to that over the next couple of months, and now we're fast and furious working on wave 2 papers, but they're all online, so you can just download them. They're only 150 pages each, about 50 pages of text, and then about 100 pages of tables. They're really, heavy-duty statistical, but the abstracts are really helpful. So that's the website that you'll go to download anything and everything about the Global Flourishing Study. Just a few things to share with you about the Global Flourishing Study that I think will be of interest. Companies all across the world are calling us. Cities are calling us. Governments are calling us. Businesses are calling. They want to know, how do we flourish? We want to be America's first flourishing city. I wish I had $1 for every city that's called me to say that we want to be America's first flourishing city. And we have churches that are reaching out to us too. We want to be a flourishing congregation. And so we're fast working on all of those kinds of things. It's very exciting that the world is taking an interest in something and they don't even know what undergirds the flourishing life, or what you might call the abundant life. But what the data are showing very, very clearly is that God makes a difference in the lives of people and in the lives of communities. One of the most powerful things is that we flourish together. It's a communal thing. If my neighbor's not doing well, how can I be flourishing? And so this is, of course, straight out of the gospel, isn't it? And so if you look at the early church, the first century church, you can see so much of a flourishing framework there. And now here we are in 2025. God has given us a framework that just seems to resonate with just about everybody. We convened a meeting in Rome a couple of years ago, and we were surprised at who came. Google, Cisco, Microsoft, Meta, and about 4 or 5 other major corporations that want to understand what flourishing is. Of course, these are all completely secular. And when they see the domains of flourishing, they seem harmless. Physical health, mental health, close relationships, purpose, meaning, these things, character, these all sound fine and well. But when they find out that faith undergirds each one of those domains, then they're really struggling. What do we do with these findings? And because God has helped us devise a methodology that is so rigorous, it's being published in these massively secular outlets. So it's just, we're thankful to God, and I think that the tools that will come from the Global Flourishing Study, which we are working on, how-to manuals, how can you incorporate these things in your own life and in the lives of the communities that you work in. If there's some small way that we can be an encouragement to the work that you're doing as adoptive parents and foster parents, we would love to do that. I was telling Mary Beth a moment ago, I mean, this is the work that will change the world, and we're just wanting to tell that story. I have a couple minutes, so I'll tell you one other thing. In addition to studying all these people around the world in these different languages, we're also studying prisoners in a maximum security prison in Mississippi. And you might think that that's the last place in the world that you would go to find people that are flourishing. But indeed, that's exactly what we're finding. We're finding people who have life sentences and even people on death row that are exhibiting high levels of flourishing on each of the domains. And one of the inmates on death row that I was interviewing, I said, how is it that you have this expression on your face every time I see you? He said, well, we're all born with a death sentence. But he said, I have found eternal life here, so I have a peace and a contentment. I have finally found a meaning and a purpose that I never had in the free world, but I do have it now. And so those kinds of stories give you insights to what the world is missing. And I think in the advanced societies like ours, we've strayed. We have financial security as a society, but we've lost something along the way, and that's really evidenced, of course, among so many that are struggling. And for us as believers, this gives us the added weight of taking the good news. So thank you for what you're doing. One life at a time, one family at a time, you're helping to change your communities and change the world. And I just think that that's something that's so commendable. And we hope that the Global Flourishing Study will be of use to use, for all of you to use and to cite. But thank you for having us. Appreciate it. God bless you all. Keep up the great work.